Evan walked through the wide halls of the space station, his hands tucked into the pockets of his worn jacket. The station floated silently between the stars, a massive ring of metal and lights where humans and dragons lived together. Dragons of every size soared through open corridors, their scales shining under the artificial sunlight, and humans hurried along carrying tools, crates, and gadgets. To most people it was a normal busy day. But to Evan, it was just another day of small work and quiet observation. He liked being unnoticed. It gave him peace. His job was simple: fix things no one else cared about. A broken light here, a loose panel there, or a stuck sliding door. Most people didn't thank him. Most dragons didn't even notice him. But that was fine. He had his work, and his small corner of the station was enough. As he walked past the marketplace section, Evan noticed something strange. In a quiet corner, near a fountain that shimmered with floating water droplets, a small dragon hatchling struggled with a toy. It was no ordinary toy. It was a glowing crystal that floated in a gentle orbit, spinning slowly, but now it was broken. One part refused to move, and the hatchling poked at it with tiny claws, squeaking in frustration. Most people walked past, too busy or too afraid to stop. Some of the larger dragons glanced briefly, their golden eyes curious, then looked away. But Evan slowed down. He crouched near the hatchling, careful not to scare it. The little dragon's scales were a soft green, with patches of silver along its wings. Its eyes, wide and round, held both anger and sadness, and somehow, Evan felt a pull in his chest. "Hey there," he said softly. "Looks like it's stuck." The hatchling paused, blinking at him. Its small wings fluttered nervously. Evan held out a hand, palm open, showing he meant no harm. Slowly it handed over the toy. The crystal was heavier than it looked, and the broken part clicked faintly when he touched it. Evan studied it for a moment. The toy was made with a mix of human technology and dragon magic. The crystal itself hummed faintly, like it was alive. He smiled to himself. "I think I can fix this," he said. The hatchling tilted its head, watching him carefully. It chirped softly, a sound somewhere between a laugh and a cry. Evan chuckled. "Don't worry. I won't break it more." He set the crystal on the ground and began examining it. Tiny gears, faintly glowing wires, and delicate dragon runes all tangled together. He didn't understand everything, but he knew humans were good at figuring things out. And patience, he realized, was often stronger than magic. As he worked, he kept talking to the little dragon. "So, what's your name?" he asked. The hatchling chirped again but didn't answer. That was fine. Names were not important right now. What mattered was that the toy would spin again. Minutes passed. He cleaned a tiny crack, adjusted the floating mechanism, and gently tapped a rune until it glowed steady. The crystal began to orbit again, slowly at first, then faster, until it floated perfectly, spinning in the small space between his hands. The hatchling squealed with delight, jumping in excitement and flapping its tiny wings. It darted around Evan in little loops, then landed on his shoulder, chirping happily. "You like it?" Evan asked, smiling. The hatchling nuzzled his cheek, leaving a faint trace of shimmering dust on his skin. He laughed, wiping it off but feeling warm inside. He had done something small and yet it mattered. Then Evan noticed something on the crystal. A small, glowing mark, faint but distinct. It was a royal insignia, a symbol he had seen before on plaques near his boss's private office. His heart skipped a beat. Why would a royal toy be here in this quiet corner with a little dragon? He looked at the hatchling. Its eyes sparkled with excitement, completely unaware of the symbol or its meaning. Evan's mind raced. Who could this belong to? Why was it left here? And most importantly, why had he been the one to find it? The hatchling chirped again, bouncing lightly on his shoulder, tugging at his collar with tiny claws. Evan smiled nervously. Whatever the answer was, he knew one thing for sure. His quiet, ordinary day had just become anything but ordinary. From somewhere down the corridor, a large shadow moved. Evan didn't look yet, but he felt it, a presence he had seen only a few times in his life. His boss. Tall, imposing, powerful. Dragons and humans alike paused when he appeared, but Evan had always kept his distance. Now though, he wondered if the boss would notice him, or the hatchling. The little dragon looked up at him, chirped once more, and nuzzled against his cheek. Evan's hands were shaking slightly. He had no idea that this small act of kindness, fixing a broken toy, was about to change everything. Evan carefully set the spinning crystal back on the ground, watching it hover in perfect orbit. The little dragon hatchling hopped from his shoulder and tapped the crystal with a tiny claw. It glowed brighter for a moment, spinning faster as if it were happy. The hatchling chirped a high, musical sound, then ran little circles around Evan, flapping its wings in excitement. Evan laughed softly. "You really like it, huh?" he said. The hatchling squeaked and batted at his jacket, leaving tiny scratches in the fabric. He didn't mind. Small things like this, tiny moments of joy, were rare in the busy space station, and he felt lucky to be part of it. He glanced around. Most people were busy with their own tasks. Humans moved quickly, dragging crates and equipment. Larger dragons floated above, scanning the area with their sharp, golden eyes. No one seemed to notice the small green hatchling and the human who had fixed its toy. That suited Evan just fine. Then movement caught his eye. A tall figure was approaching from the far end of the corridor. The air seemed to shift as it moved. Even from a distance, Evan could tell this was someone important. He froze slightly, feeling the familiar weight of tension. His boss. The leader of the Dragon Human Council on the station. Known for being distant, strict, and almost impossible to please. Even the bravest humans gave a wide berth. The boss's long cloak shimmered under the lights, and the scales along the shoulders glinted like polished steel. Evan's heart started to pound. What would happen if the boss noticed the hatchling, or the crystal? Royal toys were not meant to be touched by anyone outside their inner circle. And Evan had held it, adjusted it, and made it spin again. He swallowed hard. "Oh, I can put it back," he whispered, crouching closer to the hatchling. The little dragon chirped again, chirping in what sounded like laughter, and nudged Evan's hand as if to say, "It's okay. Don't worry." The boss came closer, and Evan could now see the sharpness in his eyes. They were like molten gold, bright and piercing. The dragons around them instinctively gave space, keeping a careful distance. The hatchling froze, tilting its head in curiosity, then scuttled closer to Evan as if for protection. "Where did you find this?" the boss asked, his voice low but clear. Every sound seemed to echo slightly in the wide corridor. He looked first at the hatchling, then at Evan, and finally at the crystal spinning between them. Evan's stomach tightened. I found it here in the corner," Evan stammered. "It was broken. I just fixed it." The boss's eyes narrowed, but there was no anger, only surprise. He knelt down slowly, keeping his gaze on the little dragon. "This toy belongs to my son," he said quietly, almost to himself. "How did it get here?" Evan's heart skipped a beat. His mind raced. I don't know," he admitted. "I just saw it, and he looked sad. So I tried to help." For a long moment the boss stayed silent. He examined the spinning crystal carefully, then glanced at Evan again. The hatchling hopped onto the boss's shoulder and chirped, nuzzling his cheek. The boss's expression softened slightly, something rare and unfamiliar to Evan. "You helped him," the boss said finally, almost as a statement, not a question. "Without asking for permission. Without knowing who he was." Evan nodded, unsure if he should say more. I just wanted to fix it," he said. "It didn't seem like it would hurt anyone." The boss studied him for a long moment. Around them, the station went quiet, as if everyone sensed something important was happening. Even the larger dragons seemed to hover in place, watching carefully. Then the hatchling chirped again, batting at the spinning crystal. It was perfect now, orbiting gently as if alive. The boss reached out and touched it, smiling faintly for the first time Evan had ever seen. The golden eyes of the dragon softened, and for a moment, the boss looked less like a ruler and more like a parent. "You fixed it," the boss said softly. "And in doing so, you have shown care. Something humans understand and dragons sometimes forget." Evan blinked. Care. That was all he had done, just repaired a toy. He hadn't thought about power or rank or importance. But now he realized the boss saw something deeper. A small kindness could matter more than strength or authority. The little dragon chirped happily, then flapped its tiny wings and landed back on Evan's shoulder. It looked at him with wide, trusting eyes, and Evan felt a warmth spread through his chest. He had no idea that this simple act, just fixing a toy, had begun to change everything around him. The boss stood slowly and looked down at Evan. "You will join us soon," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Not for punishment. Not for reward. But to help us understand what it means to care." Evan's heart raced. He didn't know what that meant yet. But he understood one thing clearly. His quiet life, his ordinary work, had just led him to an extraordinary moment. The hatchling chirped one last time, nuzzling Evan's cheek again, and the crystal spun brighter than ever. And Evan knew, without fully understanding how, that his life, and perhaps the station itself, was about to change forever. The next morning, Evan arrived at work feeling nervous. Even though nothing bad had happened yesterday, He couldn't stop thinking about the small green hatchling and the spinning crystal. Something about the way the boss had looked at him, soft, curious and almost respectful, made his chest feel tight. He wasn't sure if he had done something right, or if he was about to get in trouble. As he walked through the station's corridors, he saw the little dragon hatchling waiting for him near the fountain. It chirped excitedly and ran in small circles. Evan smiled. The hatchling's joy was contagious, and it made him forget his worries for a moment. "You're early," Evan said softly, kneeling down. The hatchling chirped back, nudging the crystal toward him. It was glowing gently, spinning in perfect orbit as if it had never broken. Evan picked it up carefully and examined it again. The small royal insignia still shone faintly, reminding him that this was not just any toy. From the corner of his eye, he noticed movement. The boss was watching him from across the hall. He stood tall and still, his golden eyes focused, observing every small gesture Evan made. The air around him felt heavier than usual, but Evan tried to act natural. "You fixed it well," the boss said, his voice calm but firm as he walked closer. "Better than I expected." Evan nodded, unsure what to say. "Thank you, sir. I just wanted to help." The boss crouched down to the hatchling's level and extended a clawed hand. The little dragon hopped onto it and chirped happily. "And you, little one," the boss said, smiling faintly. "You are clever, but sometimes cleverness is not enough. You must also trust the right people." Evan watched closely. This was a side of the boss he had never seen. People feared him, and for good reason. He ruled with authority and no one dared question his decisions. But now, seeing him interact with his son, Evan realized there was more to the dragon leader than anyone knew. He was a parent first, a ruler second. The boss looked at Evan again. "You understand the meaning of care," he said. "You fixed something broken without expecting anything in return. That is rare." Evan shrugged. "I just thought it needed help," he said honestly. "It didn't seem like anyone else would do it." The boss's eyes narrowed slightly, studying him carefully. "It is more than that," he said. "You acted without fear. You saw a problem and solved it. And in doing so, you have shown a human quality that is often underestimated." Evan blinked. "A human quality?" "Humans think small, yet they act where dragons hesitate," the boss said. "They care for details that dragons consider unimportant. And yet, those small acts can change everything." The hatchling chirped again, nuzzling Evan's hand. The boss watched the small interaction closely, then stood and gestured for Evan to follow. "Come with me," he said. "There is something you need to see." Evan hesitated, then followed. The boss led him through long corridors he had never been allowed to enter. Walls were lined with ancient tapestries and glowing maps of star systems. The air smelled faintly of ozone and polished metal. Finally, they reached a large room, quiet and empty except for a single chair in the center. "Sit," the boss commanded softly. Evan obeyed, unsure what was coming next. The boss knelt beside the chair and gestured toward the hatchling. "Your kindness has brought you here," he said. "But there is more you need to understand." He reached out and lifted the hatchling gently. Evan's heart skipped a beat. The boss cradled his son with care, and the little dragon chirped softly, resting its head against the dragon leader's chest. Evan realized for the first time that this small dragon wasn't just any child. It was the boss's heir, the next in line to lead the station and perhaps the dragons themselves. "You fixed what was broken," the boss said quietly, looking at Evan with a mix of awe and curiosity. "But that is only the beginning. True leadership, true strength is not in power or fear. It is in understanding, in seeing what others need and helping without expectation." Evan felt a rush of warmth. He had never thought of his actions as important. He had just helped a small dragon. But now he understood that even small acts could carry great meaning. The boss continued, "You have shown me something I did not expect to see in a human. You have reminded me that even the smallest act of care can create trust, and trust is stronger than any force." The hatchling chirped again and crawled into Evan's lap, nuzzling his hands. Evan laughed softly. "I guess I'm learning from him too," he said. The boss nodded, standing slowly. "Yes, and perhaps you will teach others. The station, the dragons, even humans, they all have something to learn from one another. And you have taken the first step." Evan looked at the hatchling and then at the boss. He realized that life on the station was no longer ordinary for him. What had started as a small act, fixing a broken toy, had set something in motion that could change everything. For the first time, Evan felt a sense of purpose beyond his quiet work. He understood that kindness was not weakness. It was power. And the small dragon on his lap had just shown him how far it could go. After that day, Evan's life on the station began to change slowly but clearly. He no longer moved through the corridors unnoticed. The hatchling, now following him wherever he went, drew attention wherever they appeared. And with that attention came the boss, watching Evan more closely than ever. Evan was nervous at first. He was just a maintenance worker used to fixing broken doors and lights. He had never thought of himself as someone important. Yet now, the dragon boss seemed to be studying him as if testing him quietly without words. Every small act he did, the way he cleaned the floors, fixed machines or helped humans and dragons alike, was being noticed. One morning, Evan was repairing a small panel in the hall when the hatchling flitted down from above, landing on his shoulder. "Good morning, shiny fixer," it chirped happily. Evan laughed, patting its head. He had started to enjoy this nickname. It made him feel connected to the little dragon. From across the hall, the boss observed silently. Evan felt the weight of those golden eyes, but instead of fear, he felt a strange confidence. The boss wasn't scolding him and he wasn't threatening him. He was watching to see what Evan would do next. As the day went on, Evan noticed other dragons stopping to watch him, curious about how a human could act with such calm and care. He helped a young dragon clean its wing, fixed a stuck crate for a human worker, and even repaired a small broken transport drone that had been ignored for weeks. Each small act brought quiet smiles from those around him. By afternoon, the boss approached him directly. "Evan," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Come with me." Evan followed, feeling both nervous and curious. The boss led him through private corridors he had never seen before, past offices and libraries full of glowing star maps and ancient scrolls. Finally, they reached a wide observation deck overlooking the station's central courtyard. Dragons and humans moved below, carrying out their daily routines. "You see all of this?" the boss asked, gesturing with a clawed hand. "Every day the station thrives. And yet, much of it depends on small acts that are easy to overlook." Evan nodded. I think I understand." The boss continued, "Humans are different from dragons. Dragons lead through strength and authority. They rule by command and fear. But humans lead by care. By seeing what is broken and fixing it. By noticing what others need even when no one asks." Evan looked at the hatchling perched on his shoulder, chirping softly. The little dragon had been his teacher without knowing it. He realized that even small kindnesses could make a difference in ways he hadn't imagined. "You fixed a toy," the boss said, "but in doing so, you taught a dragon something he could not learn from power alone. You reminded me that even we who rule with strength need care to guide us." Evan felt a warmth spread through his chest. He had never thought that his simple work could matter so much. He had always believed that fixing things was just a way to pass time, to make his life feel useful. But now he understood that even small actions could influence the strongest, the oldest, and the most powerful. Over the next few days, the boss began to involve Evan in small decisions. Not big, dangerous ones, but small choices that affected the station. How to organize work teams, how to repair damaged equipment efficiently, how to make spaces safer for humans and dragons alike. The boss asked for his perspective on problems, listened carefully to his suggestions, and sometimes even implemented them immediately. Evan was surprised. He hadn't expected to have a voice in the station's affairs. Yet the more he helped, the more the dragons and humans began to notice. They saw that the quiet human could solve problems without arguing, without demanding respect, simply by acting with care and patience. The hatchling was always there, chirping and encouraging him, as if reminding him that even small acts could create change. Together they moved through the station, repairing broken things, helping others, and slowly bridging the gap between humans and dragons. One evening, as the stars outside the observation deck shone brightly, the boss approached Evan once more. "You see now, don't you?" he said. "Strength alone does not guide a people. Authority alone does not create trust. But care can change everything. Even the smallest act of it." Evan nodded, looking at the hatchling curled against his chest. "I understand," he said. I didn't expect it to matter so much." The boss smiled faintly, a rare expression. "It does. And you, human, have reminded me of something I had forgotten. That even we who seem powerful need guidance in ways we do not see. You will continue to help us, and together we can make this station a place where humans and dragons thrive, not just coexist." Evan felt a sense of purpose he had never known. He realized that his small acts of kindness, his care for what others ignored, could truly make a difference. And with the hatchling by his side, he felt ready for whatever challenges would come next. For the first time, Evan understood that humanity's true power was not in strength, not in command, but in the simple courage to care for others, even when no one was watching. Days turned into weeks, and Evan's life on the station had changed in ways he had never imagined. The small green hatchling followed him everywhere, chirping happily and showing the little human off to anyone who would watch. People began to notice him, not just as a worker, but as someone who could solve problems, calm tensions, and bring creatures of all kinds together. The boss watched from a distance at first, then gradually began including Evan in small meetings. At first, it was minor decisions: how to repair a broken transport module, how to organize human and dragon teams for efficiency. But over time, the boss started asking for Evan's thoughts on larger matters: the station's layout, the care of young dragons, and how humans and dragons could share spaces more peacefully. Evan was amazed. He had never imagined that his simple acts of fixing broken things and helping a small dragon could lead to this. And yet, here he was, giving advice to the most powerful dragon on the station. One morning, the boss called Evan to his private office. The hatchling perched on Evan's shoulder, chirping softly. The boss motioned for him to sit. "Evan," he said, "I have watched how you act these past weeks. You do not lead with strength. You do not demand respect. Yet others follow you because they trust you. And that trust is worth more than any power we dragons possess." Evan felt a lump in his throat. He had never thought of himself as a leader. He was just a human who fixed things. But now he realized that leadership could take many forms, and care was one of the strongest. The boss continued, "I want you to have a new role. Not as a servant, not as a worker, but as a bridge binder. You will help humans and dragons understand each other, guide them, and show them how small acts of kindness can create harmony. You will be my advisor and my son's teacher in what it means to trust others." Evan's eyes widened. He could hardly believe it. "Me?" he asked. The boss nodded. "Yes. You have shown that even someone small, quiet, and ordinary can make a difference. Your care, your patience, your willingness to see what others need, these are gifts that cannot be taught. They must be lived." The hatchling chirped loudly as if cheering for him. It nuzzled Evan's cheek, leaving a tiny spark of shimmering dust that tickled his skin. Evan laughed softly, feeling a warmth he had never felt before. From that day forward, Evan's work took on a new purpose. He helped young dragons learn to be patient, taught humans how to notice what dragons needed, and guided both species in small, meaningful ways. Every broken toy, every malfunctioning light, every frustrated creature became an opportunity for him to show care. And slowly the station began to feel different. People smiled more often. Dragons paused to help humans. Humans began to trust dragons, and dragons began to trust humans. One afternoon, Evan walked through the central courtyard with the hatchling chirping at his shoulder. A group of young dragons were playing, and some human children joined them. Evan watched as they shared toys, laughed, and learned from each other. The once quiet and ordinary station now hummed with life, cooperation, and understanding. The boss appeared behind him, silent as always. But this time there was no tension in the golden eyes, only approval. He placed a massive claw on Evan's shoulder. "You see, Evan," he said softly, "strength is not just about power. Leadership is not about command. It is about seeing what is broken and making it whole. And sometimes the smallest act can create the greatest change." Evan looked down at the hatchling, who chirped happily and twirled the glowing crystal in its tiny claws. He realized that everything had started with one small act: fixing a broken toy for a small dragon who needed help. That one choice had changed not only his life but the life of the boss, the hatchling, and the entire station. He smiled, feeling a sense of purpose deeper than he had ever known. Humanity's true power, he realized, was not in strength or speed, not in weapons or technology. It was in care, in patience, in noticing what others need and acting without expectation. The boss nodded as if reading his thoughts. "Remember this, Evan. Never underestimate the power of small kindnesses. They are stronger than fire, sharper than claws, and more enduring than time itself." Evan looked out at the station, at the humans and dragons moving together, laughing, working, and helping each other. The hatchling chirped once more, nuzzling him, and the crystal spun brightly in its claws. Everything felt alive, balanced, and full of hope. He had started as an ordinary human in an extraordinary place. Now he was a symbol of something greater. A bridge between worlds, a teacher, and a reminder that even the smallest act of kindness could change everything. And for the first time, Evan knew without doubt that he belonged here, not because of power or status or fear, but because he cared, and in caring he had shown everyone the greatest strength of all.